Historical context: Stalin's war on undesirables, the Great Turn and collectivization. Background: Stalin's first five-year plan, 1928 to 1933, aimed to rapidly industrialize the USSR and collectivize agriculture. This led to the violent suppression of the peasantry, particularly the kulaks, wealthier farmers, who resisted surrendering their land and livestock. Dekulakization: between 1930 to 1933, approximately 1.8 million kulaks and their families were deported to Siberia, Central Asia, and the Arctic. Many died en route or in labor camps due to harsh conditions. Social cleansing: by 1933, Stalin expanded targets to socially harmful elements, sotsvredelementi, including petty criminals, vagrants, beggars, former nobles, and anyone deemed politically unreliable. The secret police, OGPU, orchestrated mass arrests to cleanse cities of parasites. The May 1933 Directive Order No. 00447. In May 1933, the OGPU authorized the deportation of 2 million people to Siberia for colonization. Nazino Island became one of many dumping grounds for these exiles. Rationale: the regime claimed deportees would build self-sustaining settlements, but in reality it was a death sentence. Supplies were non-existent, and remote locations like Nazino were chosen to isolate victims. The deportation to Nazino Island, selection and transport arrests. In spring 1933, over 6,000 people were rounded up in Moscow, Leningrad, St. Petersburg, and other cities. Many were homeless or arrested for minor offenses, e.g., lacking internal passports. Composition: the group included class enemies, former nobles, clergy, and intellectuals. Criminals: petty thieves, prostitutes, and repeat offenders. Displaced peasants, victims of collectivization. Journey: packed into unheated cattle cars, deportees endured a weeks-long rail journey to Tomsk, Siberia. Many died of starvation, disease, or suffocation. Survivors were then loaded onto barges and transported 500 kilometers north to Nazino Island. Arrival on the island: deportees arrived on May 18, 1933, with no tools or supplies, only 20 bags of flour, no bread, for 6,000 people. Inadequate clothing: many wore rags, leaving them vulnerable to hypothermia in the freezing Siberian nights. No medical care. Typhus, dysentery, and scurvy spread rapidly. Starvation and survival. First days: guards dumped flour into the river, forcing deportees to wade into icy water to collect it. Many drowned or froze. Others mixed raw flour with water, causing fatal stomach ruptures. Foraging: survivors ate grass, tree bark, and rodents. Some resorted to boiling leather belts or boots. Cannibalism. Desperation. Within days, reports emerged of corpses with missing limbs. Starving groups hunted weaker individuals, murdering them for meat. Systematic butchery. Armed gangs, often criminals, controlled food distribution, trading human flesh for gold teeth or clothing. One survivor recalled seeing people being roasted on fires. Official reports: a medic sent to the island documented 295 cases of cannibalism in official records, though the true number was likely higher. Violence and lawlessness. Guard brutality. OGPU guards, many corrupt and sadistic, shot deportees for minor infractions or traded food for sexual favors. Some guards joined criminal gangs. Hierarchy of power. Stronger deportees formed armed bands, terrorizing others. Women and children were particularly vulnerable to exploitation and violence. Death toll. By June 20, 1933, 1 month later, 4,000 to 5,500 had died. Bodies littered the island or floated down the Ob River. Failed rescue. Evacuation. In June, authorities relocated 2,000 survivors to labor camps upstream. Many died en route or in subsequent camps due to exhaustion and disease. Island cleared. By August 1933, only 157 deportees remained on Nazino. Most were later shot or left to die. Aftermath and suppression. Bureaucratic complicity. Investigation. In 1933, OGPU officer V.A. Velichko secretly reported the disaster to Moscow, blaming local officials for incompetence. His report was buried. Scapegoats. Vasily Arsenkin, the camp commander, received a minor reprimand. No high-ranking officials faced consequences. Cover-up. The tragedy was erased from Soviet records. Survivors who spoke out risked execution or rearrest. Post-Soviet revelations. In the 1980s to 90s, historians like Nicholas Wirth uncovered OGPU documents and survivor testimonies. Wirth's 1996 essay Cannibal Island brought global attention to the event. Survivor accounts. Anna Savchenko, a deportee, described how her brother was murdered for his boots. Others recalled mothers eating their dead children to survive. Broader implications: a microcosm of the Gulag. Systemic violence. Nazino exemplified the Gulag's logic: expendable human lives as tools for economic projects. Similar atrocities occurred at camps like Kolyma and Vorkuta. Scale of repression. Between 1930 to 1953, an estimated 1.7 million died in the Gulag system. Millions more perished during deportations. Ideological dehumanization. Enemy of the people. The regime's rhetoric stripped victims of humanity, justifying their extermination. Propaganda portrayed exiles as vermin, threatening socialist purity. Moral collapse. Nazino reveals how state-sanctioned violence eroded societal morality, reducing humans to primal survival instincts. Modern relevance. Memorialization. Post-Soviet Russia has largely ignored Nazino. No official memorial exists on the island, now overgrown and inaccessible. Lessons. The tragedy warns of the dangers of authoritarianism, scapegoating, and indifference to human dignity. The Nazino tragedy is not merely a historical footnote, but a visceral reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty under oppressive systems. It underscores the catastrophic consequences of unchecked state power, ideological fanaticism, and the devaluation of human life. As historian Anne Applebaum noted, the Gulag was a machine designed to destroy individuals, and Nazino Island stands as one of its most grotesque creations. Remembering this event challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about totalitarianism and the fragility of civilization.